Democratic Congresswoman from California's 46th District, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. Congresswoman, thanks so much for joining us. There are deadlines looming, and it sounds like nobody is at the captain's wheel. How confident are you that House Republicans are going to do anything to avoid another government shutdown in January?
Well, I think they got burned by this last government shutdown, and I believe that they're going to work hard to ensure that that doesn't happen. There are plenty of Republicans and Democrats working together right now. I spoke to Chairman David Camp yesterday. He's working towards some tax reform. I am hoping that this budget committee will come together, and what I'm hearing out of that committee is not that they will come out with the grand budget for the year or a grand plan to solve all of this, but that there will be baby steps. They'll get something under their belt and they'll put it forward, and we'll be able to agree on it, but they'll also agree to next steps maybe. So it is a process that's ongoing, and I'm confident that we can get there. I do not believe for 1 minute that Speaker Boehner will not have us here in December. I've been here for 17 years, except for, well, every year I've been here December 23rd, December 18th, so we will be here working.
Congresswoman, I'm going to open this up to our folks in D.C. Robert, I like that decidedly optimistic take from the Congresswoman and reaffirmation that Congress is not going to be out of session for the entire month of December, because there are just a couple things that need to get done. But in the wake of all of the government shutdown, and there has been a very strong focus on the Affordable Care Act, which I think has provided smokescreen for a lot of Republicans who otherwise have some very tough questions to answer about the future of their party. And I think much of that remains highly unresolved. There are 27 senators who rescinded or disavowed their vote reopening the government and preventing economic catastrophe. There is still a huge amount of tension over where to go next, and I guess I wonder what your thinking is for the months ahead.
Well, look, I think maybe John Boehner wasn't joking, because it's entirely possible that Congress built on its 9% approval by not being in session in December, which could be a good thing. Look, I think we're going to dumb down success, right? Success is probably going to be something on the order of a $10 to $20 billion change in the budget outlook, something little on one side, something a little bit on another side, to get past some of the sequester cuts. But I think, look, the fact that legislating is probably largely done for the year, I don't think is totally surprising. Immigration reform wasn't going to happen this year. If you looked at the news recently, that was confirmed last week when they said the House wouldn't vote on it. We may not get immigration reform done next year. I mean, I just don't see that there's going to be a huge impetus to legislate, particularly when I think Congress will be wrapped around a lot of ACA hearings.
Well, yeah, and may not get immigration reform, I think, is probably more optimistic than most. I think most folks are going to say,
it's a family program.
Yeah, it's a family. It is a family, and I appreciate that. I do appreciate that. John, nothing's going to get. I mean, we don't know where the farm bill is. We don't know where comprehensive immigration reform effectively is DOA. A budget that reaches beyond, sort of a continuing resolution is a unicorn these days in Capitol Hill.
Oh, absolutely. I think, the interesting thing about how Democrats have handled this is they've been pretty masterful in turning this into a question of, Republicans, once again, not wanting to close these loopholes. And it gives them a little bit of cover, frankly, because Democrats are absolutely opposed to any kind of changes to entitlement reform. Progressives have already come out and said, we've killed this deal because we're going to make sure we're going to protect the entitlement reforms. And they're not catching much heat because Republicans are sort of viscerally reacting to these questions about the loopholes. And so long as they're able to do that, I don't see any reason for certainly Democrats to move towards them, and Republicans it just further entrenches them. And this sets up this dynamic, like you say, that you're not going to have the farm bill, you're not going to have immigration reform. Everything is going to be.
How about we dumb down success even further and just keeping the government open becomes a standard.
That's where we're at. That's success now.
And I think we could well be in that position where absolutely nothing gets done, but they will claim that we managed to keep the government. The U.S. government managed to stay open in January. It was a triumph.
That's the new mission accomplished.
Yes.
No, but
or the fever is broken.
Right.
Yeah, the fever is broken and the government is open.
Right. But I think it's also, I mean, in that sense, it is interesting. I mean, I don't know why we continue to think that a group of people that got us to the point on both sides of shutting down was somehow 2 days later going to get us out of the same dynamic that they'd. I mean, I'm thinking of that marching band in Animal House, you know, that goes right down the dead end. I mean, you're not surprised they didn't pop out on the other side. It's a dead end.
Well, the counter-argument is that John Boehner came out of that fiasco in a slightly stronger position with the conservative base of his party, because he gave them
everything they wanted.
He tried to give them everything he wanted, and so he came out of it, and Republicans will tell you he is in a much stronger position now than he was during the shutdown, so maybe he has more room to negotiate.
All these guys want to do is vote no. I mean, I think
I was trying to be optimistic.
No. No, I'm saying ultimately you'll get a resolution on these things, but I think what was proven by the last debt ceiling thing, if I'm not mistaken, is if you give these guys an opportunity to vote no, and they get to, you know, get to tout that back home, then everything's fine. You can do whatever you want.
Congresswoman, I wonder, from your vantage point, there is talk that these next sequester cuts that hit in January, because they are primarily defense cuts, it somehow gives Democrats a little bit more leverage in these negotiations. But a lot of folks look at the modern Republican Party, as is sort of iterated by the likes of Rand Paul. Cutting the defense budget has not proved to be as painful this go-round as it has been in earlier go-rounds, or the suggestion has not carried with it as much weight. And I wonder, from your vantage point as a Democrat in the House, how effective a bargaining tool the defense cuts are.
Well, first of all, we have to take a look at these defense cuts. The first round that we took in sequestration, we were able to pull monies that were in other places and sort of move forward. But these next cuts will be cutting way deep, especially into the ability for our troops to be ready to be sent off if we should need them. But more importantly, the reason I believe that Republicans will come to the table is you have to remember that a lot of these defense installations are sitting in Republican districts. They're in Texas, they're in Alabama, they're in Mississippi, they're in places where this may be the largest employer some of these guys have. For example, in Ohio and you know, my colleague Mike Turner is always saying, you know, there's 20,000 uniformed people, there's 30,000 contractors outside of the fence who work on there. That's 50,000 jobs in his district, for example. So if you really begin to see those deeper cuts into defense without us being able to realign how those cuts will be made, what you're going to see is these red district guys, these Republicans, screaming when they find out that they've cut their own throat.
Do you think they realize that they may be in danger of cutting their own throats?
Well, I think until they start to hear it from their people, they may not be. But certainly, some of them have already come up to me and said, golly, you know, this is about my people. I now realize that we've been the ones that have had the largest of defense in their districts. And so, you know, we continue to tell people, well, what we're talking about is food stamps to help women and children who are under the poverty line, you know, until we can train them up to get them jobs, create the jobs we need in our district. So it really needs to be a trade-off. We will not cut $40 billion of food stamps, throw almost 4 million people off of food stamps in order to protect their districts where they've got jobs in defense. This is what compromise is about. They are going to have to come to the table and get this done with us.
Give and take, the old chestnut. Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much, Alex.